Welcome to Café Muse. And thank you, Michael Davis, for once again sharing your beautiful classical guitar with us and the music which emanates from it. Hi, I'm Luther Jett. I'll be co-hosting this evening along with Ellen Cole. Tonight's featured readers, what a lineup. We have Michele Wolf, Bonnie Naradzay, and the team of Kim Roberts and Michael Gushue. And we're going to ask you guys in the live audience, if you haven't already done so, please silence your cell phones so that the only ringing we hear will be the ringing words of our guest poets. And for those of you tuning in on Zoom, we've got you covered because we already muted you. You can use the chat feature, however, to comment or ask questions. You're probably not going to get an answer to the questions, but you can use it to comment and ask questions anyway. We did mute your microphones. That way, barking dogs, laughing children, none of that's going to interfere with our presentation. Bear with us if we encounter a technical glitch. We'll be right back. If you have trouble on Zoom hearing the poets, you get to use the closed caption feature, and you look for a gray box down at the bottom of your screen that's labeled CC. Click on it and then choose Show Subtitles. And closed captions are going to show up at the bottom of your screen. I promise, I've never tried this, but I'm told it's reliable. We encourage everybody to buy our poets' books. For those in the live audience, the books are over here on this table. For those of you on Zoom, you can't see the table, but we're going to put links in the chat so that you can purchase the books online. And just have to say that Café Muse is a nonprofit organization with an all-volunteer team, and we encourage donations to support Café Muse and its literary programs, particularly in these times. Every little bit helps. And we will put a donation link into the chat also. Now, without further ado, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Ellen Cole. As some of you know, we recently lost a beautiful and highly respected poet, Jennifer Milito. And Jennifer was slated to read for Café Muse during our next 2026 series. That's not going to happen. But Ellen is going to read a brief poem by Jennifer, and then she will introduce our first reader, Michele Wolf.
It's an honor to be part of this evening, which is featuring some poetry luminaries from the Washington area. So I know you'll all enjoy it. I do want to say a little bit about Jennifer Martelli, who died on September 25th. She was a talented poet and a respected member of the poetry community. We had just selected her to read in the Café Muse 2026 series when just a couple of days later, we heard that she had passed away. So it was a big shock to us here at Café Muse, and we want to offer our condolences to people who knew her personally or were affected by her poems. She was a co-editor of the Mom and Egg Review, the author of 3 poetry collections. Psychic Party Under the Bottle Bush was her most recent book, published in 2024. The Queen of Queens and My Tarantella, as well as 3 chapbooks and many journal publications. In tribute to her work, I would like to read one of her poems from her book, Psychic Party Under the Apple Tree. And I love the cover of this book. I don't know if you can see it but it's a young woman with the curving horns of a mountain goat. Possum high bun. And for those of you who don't know, a high bun is a Japanese form of poetry which ends in a haiku. Moon creature, she waddled past my clay pots of sleeping English lavender, Genovese basil, black peppermint, and lemon balm. Sweet thing not of this earth, a long-tailed high bun. I too don't sleep through. I prayed for relief. I prayed my dark thoughts desiccate into tiny seeds floating out through my ribcage. But I'm an atheist, and this is what I got. Pearl glow, warm-blooded nighttime carrier with an anvil in her inner ear. She traveled across my tiny backyard, through the white light of my television, bleeding through the French panes. She lactates deep blue milk, lets her babies cling to her opalescence, pelt, warm and lunar. Thank you. I feel like this is growing out of my face. There. Now I'm going to move on to introducing our first poet for the evening, the very wonderful Michele Wolf. I feel I have a special connection to Michele because she was one of my first teachers here at the Writer Center a long time ago, where she's been teaching since 2002. And I think it was about 2002 or 2003 when I took her class. She gave me a terrific start in my poetry journey. Michele is an editor, writer, and teacher. She holds degrees from the Boston University and from Columbia. Her new poetry book, Peacocks on the Streets, was published by Broadstone Books last month. Her book, Immersion, was published by the WordWorks. Her previous books are Conversations During Sleep and The Keeper of the Light. Her poems have appeared in the Southern Review, the Hudson Review, Poetry, Boulevard, North American Review, and the Antioch Review. A former contributing editor for Poet Lore and Kirkus Reviews, she has received a Maryland State Arts Council Literary Arts Independent Artist Award. Among her other honors are an Anna Davidson Rosenberg Award and fellowships from YADA, the Edward F. Albee Foundation, the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts, and the Arts and Humanities Council of Montgomery County. Michele lives in Gaithersburg with her husband, a retired forensic science teacher at Wooten High School, and her daughter, a Montgomery College student who lives nearby. I find Michele's poetry both familiar and surprising in the best way. This is a world I know. I feel I can climb into her poems and walk around inside them. But then she uses a gorgeous metaphor, and that shakes up my whole way of visioning the world. In one poem from Peacocks on the Streets, Michele writes about her mother's brain scan as a garden, cornflower blue lesions of decay. In a poem from her book, Immersion, she writes of the horror of watching people leap from the burning Twin Towers on 9/11, who had fled from being melted down like wax, flapping their meager wings, attempting to fly. David Keplinger called her a poet of delight and mournful sensitivity, and says Peacocks on the Streets is her best work to date, a gorgeous achievement. And Ethelbert Miller writes, her poems are candles held just high enough to escort us out of surrounding darkness. So let me turn the podium over to the fabulous poet Michele Wolf and let her beautiful poems light a candle for you.
Thank you, Ellen. Thank you all for being here. This is a lovely turnout. Anyway, in the spirit of the fall, I'm going to start out with a poem that includes a pumpkin. Ladybug. Where did you come from, red lacquered spangle, glistening black dotted gem? You cling to a woven window shade in my bedroom, next to a window unopened for months. I collect you in a tissue, prepare to release you on top of a brick step beside the front door. You lie on your back, your legs kicking wildly, motorizing your goodbye. I still have the ladybug costume I bought for my daughter, a toddler, for Halloween. The headband floating two floppy antennae that wobbled whenever she shifted her head. I also saved her pumpkin candy bucket in orange and black bat pajamas. Trick or treat. How many mornings and evenings I dressed her up. She's 22 now. Costume doesn't fit. And my daughter makes an appearance in this next poem too. It's called My Elvis. Show me the ripened bride who is sure. The night preceding our wedding, I couldn't sleep. I waited awake through the dawn that followed. A decade later, our daughter plunks me into a chair, sends fireworks crackling through my nerves by clicking on the wedding video. I'm fine as I witness the ceremony, watching the cake topper twosome, our glowing younger selves, you so princely in your tux, your sun on the sea, green eyes fixed upon me. I'm fine until at the reception, after our first dance, when you take my hand and on bended knee, backed up by the band and the blaze of light radiating from 100 guests, you croon, your voice holding open the gate at the portal to our tomorrow, that you can't help falling in love with me. In the first month when the pandemic started and we were all quarantined, really basically in lockdown at home, the streets were so quiet that something happened not just locally but worldwide, and a lot of wildlife left their native habitats and began to venture out to residential and commercial spaces. So this is called Peacocks on the Streets. It faces me down, so still, a fire of amber eyes and mangy fur. 1 month into quarantine, a lone coyote, gifted with the hush of empty streets, is visiting town, the block with the movie theater, commandeering the corner outside my door. In Mumbai, honking peacocks strut their inky iridescence, flaunt their luxe medallioned capes as they parade along the residential streets. Mountain goats in coastal Wales laze on top of cars or window browse at closed cafes and shops. Maybe this will last a month, we imagined, maybe 6 weeks, as we loaded our cart with disinfectant, a rotisserie chicken, toilet paper. The evening was warm, so we lit a barbecue out back, before the slew of animal sightings. Addled with virus news, we neglected to lock up. The next day, we discovered that a thief had crept inside while we were dreaming, disappeared with our home safe, a trove of watches, diamonds, pearls, not the items a person requires to confront the dying. Soon, the first of our circle would die. Our daughter, age 16, cries daily, overwhelmed by the new normal. Today, my feed directs me to James Taylor, old now as I have become. He has been talking about depression, about as a teen living for 9 months in a psychiatric hospital, about addiction and how lucky he feels that he survived. In a new video, he sings, while sheltering in place, a song from an album I played over and over, a balm to obliterate sorrow when I was 16, a song I hadn't thought about or heard in some 50 years. To hear that voice so sincere, even after 1,000 renditions, assuring me that I can close my eyes, it's all right. And in a heap, I just break down. At a pawn shop an hour away, our detective has found my grandmother's gold and diamond watch. He has nailed a suspect. Fin whales have launched a splashy playground at the port of Marseille. Our daughter, I repeat to myself, is going to be all right. A coyote faces me on my corner. Living with wildlife is a part of life. What we fear, what we prize. Wild loss is what we have. I'd like to read one poem from my earlier book called Immersion. This is called The Great Tsunami. She recognizes its crest in the way he looks at her. The wave is as vast as the roiling mass in the Japanese print they had paused in front of at the museum, capped with ringlets of foam, all surging sinew. That little village along the shore would be totally lost. There is no escaping this. The wave is flooding his heart, and he is sending the flood her way. It rushes over her. Can you look at one face for the whole of a life? Does the moon peer down at the tides and hunger for home? I was raised in Florida, and Florida comes up in a bunch of my poems. Here's one of them. It's called The Miramar House. All summer, a solo cardinal flitted to the weighted tree in the yard, each of its mangoes a ripening sunset, waiting its turn to thump to the grass. Out front, a mass of gardenias, a creamy hover field for insects. Frame the doorway, blossoms wafting their spicy mist. The elephant seer fanned the carport, leaves extending a yard across. I was in paradise, relocated from winter's slush to my grandparents' house, scattered with seashells, removed from the world of wool and ice for good. My father was dead, but somehow this year had become the happiest of my life. The age of the interloper, official the moment I donned my poofy lilac flower girl dress. My grandmother having rolled and sprayed my kinky hair, its ridges so much like my father's, into submission, was still unknown. On our quiet street, my grandfather ran alongside me, his hand grazing my back as I pedaled in the dank breeze, knowing his voice, steady, raspy, would cushion the damage if I were to fall. I kept on pedaling, hearing his applause as I headed forward, rounding the corner. Miss Lake Hiawatha. I discovered the trophy, goddess of my mother's mythology, a golden-winged figurine reaching heavenward, clasping a leafy branched bouquet, the figure 5 inches tall atop the base, while clearing out the layered dregs of the apartment. First, my mother's mind had flickered. Then the grid turned black in chunks. She would not bathe, could not recall what you had said the moment before. Always kept a cigarette, her personal tiki torch, burning. The haze of smoke had morphed the walls from ivory to a mottled tan. Even the interior of the freezer had baked to tan. She soon needed 24-hour surveillance, this raggedy woman, once a radiant presence, whose full flirty lips and ample stark hazel eyes had made heads turn. The miniature plaque on the wooden base reads, LHCC, 1950, beauty. She had said no to 5 marriage proposals before accepting my father's at 19. It was the champion bullying of her second husband, not the death of her first one, that destroyed her. Why don't you ever take me on vacation, she once asked, her mother and sister stationed at the table to witness. Because you're a stupid idiot, he replied. After the divorce, she had to steal the beauty of everyone in the room. To be the locus, the golden figurine. She perfected the art of having a man sidle up to her in a bar, offer to light her cigarette, affirm her looks. Dating became a crusade, a career. What she never told us, what I learned from the newspaper folded up with the prize, was that she didn't win the contest. She was second runner-up. The golden trophy is tiny, almost a toy. Upon entering old age, muscles atrophy. The scaffold of bones gets brittle and shrinks. The entire figure gets reduced. In her final weeks, my pretty mother never ventured to speak. She sat in a wheelchair under a coverlet, quivering, her hazel eyes cloudy, gazing through me, gazing out at a space beyond. Did she know who I was? On my last visit, I knew she grasped I was somebody kind. Would you like me to hold your hand? I asked. Quickly, she exhaled one soft syllable. Yes. Coping with my mother's dementia was devastating for our whole family, but we still had happy moments. This next poem is called Child's Violin. Their names had been excised, plucked away without sound, then flipped into the fog, joining that haze of songs she could no longer retrieve. Yet she rose and applauded the instant she spotted her children and grandchildren at the door, her granddaughter dangling the ebony case that held her half-size violin. As always, the grandmother presented her kin to everyone en route. As her grandson wheeled her, clutching the violet ribbon of a helium balloon, into the party room, her granddaughter slid the bow across the amber instrument. Yankee Doodle, Ode to Joy. The grandmother bobbled her head and tapped her slippered foot. At the first surge of the can-can song, she bounded out of her chair, high-kicking a leg. Arm in arm, her family joined her, interlocked in a jaunty chorus line. As soon as the song and cheering ended, the grandmother lifted a chocolate cupcake to her lips, gobbled the swirling icing only, licking her fingers to claim each last bit of glaze. The final song on that morning's program, Happy Birthday. What sonorous voice from such a diminutive box of wood. And I'll close with a poem called Place of Great Bones. It has an epigraph of Sconset, Nantucket. Sconset is one of my family's favorite places on earth. And the name the village name translates to Place of Great Bones, and it comes from what the word would mean in the Wampanoag language. And the Wampanoag people were the original residents of Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket. Place of Great Bones, Sconset, Nantucket. It is the edge of the beginning, the sun-spattered sweep of the Atlantic, its salt breath levitating you each time you pause at a vantage point on the bluff. The village cottages, boxed in cedar shingle fringes buffed to gray, are centuries old. All have names: Old Lang Syne, House of Lords, and sprout hedges of hydrangeas, masses of blue globes, perky petaled breasts aloof to their allure. At sunrise, seals arc like tubby dolphins, nuzzle heads together, flippers slapping high fives close to shore. The ocean enfolds you, ever breathing in your ear. And who is to say you cannot own this place, that it cannot own you? The houses sit so near their neighbors. Sound carries a baby's shout, a bicycle crunching against the crushed shells of the lane, but never drowns out the churn of the surf, the wind as it sifts through spiky beach grass and rosa rugosa. Pink button roses, they stand watch at their shrubby command, fencing the beach from the road. Shrug off, if you wish, the men dressed up to dine in brick-colored pants. Claim the bluff, the cottages lost in time, this place of great bones, Sconset. Claim the cracked whale fin bone, a stone too heavy to lift, on the ramshackle porch of the former fisherman's shack you lease, its rickety windows encasing the ocean in every room, the vast beach vacant at the height of the season. Claim your heartbeat, your mind, which boots up on cue, its slideshow of watery vistas. Your feet scuff the ground or hover above it. Claim 80-some years if you're lucky, dusted with sand.
Thank you, Michele, for those moving words. Bonnie Naradzay. Bonnie is a lifelong student of literature and an accomplished poet. She facilitates regular poetry study sessions in Washington, D.C. at day shelters and a local retirement community. Her poems have been published in numerous journals, and 3 were nominated for Pushcart Prizes. She is also a regular participant in several DMV area poetry workshops. And I need to tell you, she's a really, really good poetry critique. I always value her input. Invited to the feast is Bonnie's first full-length collection, and we're honored to hear her read from it tonight. Her poetry is culled from a lifetime of experience and steeped in the universal human history and experience and redundancy and non-redundancy. It is a joy. It is melancholy. There is loss, there is discovery, there is recovery. And she tells it in a range of styles, from free verse to formalism so tight. Everything is possible, and everyone is invited to this feast. Please welcome Bonnie Naradzay.
Thank you. Can you hear me? And thank you to my friends who came out tonight. And so I was going to start with a different poem, but I was born in Florida, and I went to college in Florida, kind of wild. I was in Winter Park, and but in between, I moved a lot of different places with my family, including in Germany, because my father was in the military. And early in a military career, the moves are more frequent before you kind of settle down. So I'm going to read a poem about Florida, and it's in Sapphics, but not exactly, but I counted the syllables. So each stanza is 3 lines of 11 syllables, and then a 4th line of 5 syllables. So see if I counted right. All right. It's called Old Florida. Winters were mild. We imported peyote, practiced missionary acts on rattan mats. Cockroaches waved their ludic feelers at us. We faked our IDs. Okay. Mr. Aycock in Existential Lit taught us that free will is just like refusing painkillers while sitting in the dentist's chair. It sounded easy. Real flamencos hung out at the nearby pool, idly standing on single legs to see us walk the plank by falling off the diving board because we felt free. We scanned verses and crammed marijuana seeds in Louisiana picayunes just to blow smoke rings in the air near our professor, a sad PhD. Eels hid in weeds submerged in the placid lake where we water skied close to the cypress trees hung with curlicues of gray-green Spanish moss, our own Innisfree. So I have a couple of poems that I had planned to read, and the last time I was here at the Writer Center and with some of you tonight was to read poems by Stanley Plumley, because a new book of his collected poems has recently come out. So now I'd like to read a poem that I wrote for Plumley, and this was first published in Agni. And there's an epigraph from one of his poems. Like every other griever, I choose a flower, a violet. He said to put myself in the poem, though I had written about the potato famine. Have you been to Ireland? He asked. Yes, to Dingle, I said, on the peninsula where sheep graze, and the Blaskets, where seals bob in the shadows of the tide that will take us away. He asked if I could film that scene. Stay in the moment, he said. Be a guide. For you can't disappear in the poem or let your mind get lost in memories. Poetry is meditation and a looking back, he said. And don't be in a hurry to send out poems. Let it take years. It's awful when you can't get what you want. What matters most is how the pain can try to weigh you down. Then you must start all over again. Now, the next poem I'm going to read is a time when I was in Cornwall, in England, in January. And you'll know it's Sunday because it's in the poem. It's called Presence. In the middle of my journey through Cornwall on the Atlantic side, 6 hours by train from Paddington, though I was there during a lonely time in January, I grew to like it without meaning to. Standing at the shore near the wharves, taking ferries all day, ordering fish and chips. Though you could say a rootless, solitary life can last for just so long. I thought of Ovid, the poems he sent home after he was banished far to the north of Rome at a Black Sea outpost after his urgent pleas to return went for naught. Old man by then, he was reduced to simple gestures in Thomas, which made him the barbarian, not them. His Latin verses being worthless now, he began to enter the language there and realized that people valued friendship, as he said in Tristia. For me, friendship was a small church next to the seawall on a cold and windy afternoon. Opening the rough-hewn wooden door, I saw a kindly gentleman standing near the altar. He was sharing his thoughts about the gifts the wise men had brought. It was Epiphany Sunday. To 3 old people sitting close to each other on a pew. He gestured to me, "Come in, abide with us." That was on page 27 if you happen to have a book. Right. So I'm going to read this poem. I've read it before originally to some people here, but this is a villanelle, and it's about a pastor who used to be at our church, St. Andrew Apostle. And I just love the reading. It's about Isaiah, okay? Another Sunday in ordinary time. The pastor walks among us, rolls up his sleeves, warming to the prophet's teaching this morning. For Isaiah is preaching, we have withered like leaves. The blind man said he saw men walking like trees at time when he was blessed with the gift of seeing. The pastor walks among us, rolls up his sleeves. Our guilt is heavy and our suffering great, reprises the pastor, while I ponder the miracles of healing. And Isaiah is preaching, we have withered like leaves. It's another Sunday in ordinary time. I look at the frieze of the Last Supper, the bread, the wine, the final gathering. The pastor walks among us as he rolls up his sleeves. On the radio this morning, a man said he believes that people go to church to enter the cloud of unknowing. Here, Isaiah is preaching, we have withered like leaves. Isaiah wants the brokenhearted to hear his pleas. His field of vision is like a plow that's still turning. The pastor walks among us, rolling up his sleeves, since Isaiah is saying, we have withered like leaves. So that's on page 30. So this is a guzzle, which I read to you like the other night. And it's called Guzzle, with a phrase from Dickinson. And of course, as you know, the guzzle is like 2-line stanzas. Each stanza sort of stands by itself. And the last word in the second line is repeated, and the next to last line and the next to last word in the first line rhymes with the others in that position. At last, the snow. I shoveled the walk before disappearing inside my black hole. The snow kept on falling anyway. The hospice worker said the dying regret not having lived true to themselves before slowly fading away. Genesis starts over and tells two different creation stories. We can't even get this right without losing our way. Earth is close to losing its second moon, and black holes obliterate galaxies. The stars disappearing, just going away. Prisoners at Guantanamo, never charged, wrote poems on styrofoam cups until guards took even this writing away. I told my friend, I don't think I have a self. He said, we all do. So I tried to say it's somewhere else, not inside hiding, anyway. Weight of forgetting, sustenance of despair. To find my son, I'd sail past the pillars of Hercules if I could stop drowning this way. I do this on page 31. And now we have a pantoum from the pandemic. And so you all know pantoum as a way of repeating some lines. And I can remember when I thought I had to write this down, and I was standing in line outside Trader Joe's, and they, you know, at that time when they had the little round circles, like stand here, 6 feet away, and so I thought that's ridiculous. And so I wrote these lines. This has been done before, standing in line for a long time. Think of Soviet women who queued for hours for bread. And I have learned about the lines of the Great Depression. Men lined up for mind-numbing jobs at assembly lines. Think of Soviet women who stood for hours for bread, or at Maktaba outside the prison waiting for news of her son. Here, men lined up for mind-numbing jobs at assembly lines. These days, some have it easy. Food deliveries, yoga online. Akhmatova outside the prison waited with women for news and the chance to send a loaf of bread or a note inside. These days, some have it easy. Food deliveries, yoga online. Still, Camus said, the plague is within us, here to stay. I have learned about the lines of the Great Depression, where hope envisions a loaf of bread, a note from inside. Camus wrote, the plague is within us, here to stay, as it has always done, waiting in line for a long time. So I'm going to read one called Do Not Hurry Your Journey. And this is after Cavafy. It was after his poem called Ithaca. Do not hurry your journey to the Isola de San Michel, the island of the dead. As you set out on the Vaporetto from Venice, the city swathed in scaffolding and sinking into its canals, past Torcello with its malarial swamps, poppy fields, lagoons, and rejoice that you are old by the time you first behold from the water the high brick walls and dense cypress trees of the Isola, where it has always lain half buried in your mind. When you reach it, go find the ancient bone heaps entombed in the Renaissance church, guided with carvings of stone angels, where monks still tend the reliquaries. But do not hurry your journey at all. Better if it lasts for years, so you arrive laden with all you've lost along the way. Otherwise, you could not have expected such peace among the stacked memorials guarded by seagulls, lizards, and hooded crows. All right, this is called Paradise in the Day Shelter. What they liked best was the poem about a paradise you can conceal in your pocket so no one will steal it. Queenie, who stows her hearing aids in a Ziploc bag in her pocket, asks what free verse is. It's verse you don't have to pay for, Chuck tells her. Paul asks if paradise is a place. Mo shakes his head and says, it's a sleeping bag at night that you can turn into a jacket in the morning. Leon, who sleeps nearby on the steps outside St. Paul's, thinks paradise could be a place to live, a tent or a camper. I say, you would need a big pocket for that. Saul asks, if I see it, will I recognize it? Carl says, if you speak of paradise, you must consider hell and the duality of existence. Well, Jimmy Buffett sang of cheeseburgers in paradise, Eugenia replies, and a slice of onion is heaven on earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bonnie, for your powerful and intricate work. Our next readers, tonight we are presenting co-authors Michael Gushue and Kim Roberts, whose collaborative effort, Q&A for the End of the World, is a sequence of poems about classic science fiction films from the 1950s and 1960s. At first glance, this collection might seem to be a wry romp, a nostalgic paean to a bygone era of cinematic innocence now eclipsed by high-tech wizardry and CGI. Well, it is, but do not be deceived. There's more. There's so many questions, not only about the films themselves, but about human nature, our need for certainty in the face of the unknown, our dismay when that certainty is stripped away, questions about modern society and where all this is taking us. Both authors are well known and widely published, so without further ado, please welcome the DMV's dynamic duo, Michael Gushue and Kim Roberts.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Luther. That was wonderful.
Such a pleasure to be here. So this all happened because my fiance Tracy saw that they were showing a classic Godzilla film at the Smithsonian Asian Art Museum. It was Godzilla versus Mothra. And Tracy got us tickets and she got an extra one for Michael. I had never seen a Godzilla film. I had never seen any classic science fiction movies, but we knew that Michael was the expert. This was his area of expertise. Everyone's got to have one. And so, indeed, Michael, he comes into the movie with these interesting facts about who the director is and what the soundtrack is about, and like all of the
Trivia.
okay, trivia, all of the trivia you might want, and more. Some you might not want. And we watched the movie and I was just astounded. Not only that I'd sort of missed out on this, but also, I just couldn't take it in. So we left the theater, we left the auditorium, and I started peppering him with questions. And Michael and I have known each other for, 25 or 30 years. For much of that time, we've been in a writers group together that meets monthly to critique works in progress. I could not get this movie out of my head. And so at our next writers group meeting, I brought in the poem, I Have So Many Questions After Watching Mothra versus Godzilla. And, we did what we do in our writing group and critiqued it, et cetera. And then Michael went home that afternoon and wrote the poem, I Have the Answers to Mothra versus Godzilla, and a series was born. So as it turns out, all of these movies that we write about, we saw very few of them together in theaters where they were intended to be shown because Michael owns them. He has this incredible collection. We only got to a limited number of movies that Michael feels were essential for my education as a newbie to this field. So the added value in the back of the book is that not only do we have Michael's extensive notes about each movie, but there's also a list of the other essential movies, according to Michael, that we should have seen.
Yes. Okay.
Do you want to say more?
No.
All right. So the for each movie that we took on, I wrote a poem called "I Have So Many Questions After Watching Whatever It Is," and Michael wrote "I Have the Answers After Watching." You will see once we start reading some of these that the word answers should be not be taken literally. His answers are not very answery, but in the way that Michael is. do you want to?
No, they're very plain spoken, obvious. They're so obvious they're completely opaque.
Yeah, no. You will see. Anyway, so there's the poems are paired. And so it always starts with my questions, his answers. And once we had this whole series going, we decided that we needed to have a poem as a sort of introduction and a poem at the end. So we're going to start with Michael's introduction to the series, and then I think we'll only have time to read just
A couple pairs.
a couple of pairings.
And then the last one.
And then my final, we end with more questions than we have answers.
As we should, as everyone should in this world. So this is called The End of the World, since the book is Q and A for the end of the world. I thought we needed a little, as is my want, a primer to get us started. The end of the world. I back out of my driveway. Maybe there was a bright streak in the sky, a burst of radio static, a flying saucer dive bombing out of the blue. In the Arctic, an atomic bomb test arouses a prehistoric monster. A milquetoast bank teller hides in the vault to read while the city is destroyed. Uncle Ira isn't Uncle Ira. A giant mantis, a giant locust, a giant ant, a giant buxom blonde. Mole men, cat women, devil women, queens and fire maidens of outer space. The earth explodes, the earth catches on fire. There's a crack in the world, magma erupts. Everyone's dead, everyone's a zombie. We've been waiting for the end of the world, on the lookout for the telltale signs, for the right scenario for the last 75 years. But it slipped past us. It was another day, exactly like today. So Kim will start with questions, and I will provide
Answery.
clear and plain spoken average Joe answers. So go ahead.
So one of the things that became clear watching all these movies, and I should emphasize how quickly we set up a weekly Wednesday matinee in Michael's living room. So I had to write these poems really quickly because I was afraid that the movies would start melding together. So this was, we flew through this series. What is so amazing about watching these movies from the 50s and 60s is how much they reflect that time period. So, all of the sexism, racism, the fears of nuclear disaster, it's all just so baldly right there. And I think there's no way to watch these movies in the same way that audiences would have watched them when they were originally released. Fair to say?
Sure, yes.
Also, since Michael and I have known each other for so long, the whole process was very revealing of what I know about Michael. So here we are in DC for this movie, the very famous one where a spaceship lands on the National Mall. Are you familiar with The Day the Earth Stood Still? Yeah, great, good. I have so many questions after watching The Day the Earth Stood Still. Why is there always a soldier or cop too quick to pull a trigger? Tracy claims the movie is the American version of Godzilla. She says it triggers all of America's worst shared cultural anxieties. Every spaceman's always in skin-tight lame. Every spaceship is always spinning like a top. Why such emphasis on the heads of nations? The top leaders will never agree to meet. The alien, soft-spoken and polite, meets every expectation of a superior being, especially his command of math. Being an ambassador, he picks up cues quickly. Why does he carry diamonds? Cue the ominous music as Patricia Neal trusts the alien to babysit. Her son kneels at his father's grave at Arlington National, then takes him to the Lincoln Memorial, the National Mall. The alien stops everything electrical for half an hour. But car engines aren't electrical, and they stop too. Tractors stop. No lives are lost. Planes in midair don't stop when the rest of the world stands still. It's an alien party trick. Still, we're certain this day can't end well when Patricia Neal has to memorize that well-known phrase, Platu Varada Nikto. In the arms of Gort, she grows limp. The authorities pick up arms. Why is there always a soldier or a cop too quick to pull a trigger?
So Kim's right. As you can, if you're familiar with the movie, but even from hearing the poem, you can hear that it's of its time. But it's also the case that they still resonate at a sort of at some particular level about our fears are not radically different than they were 75 years ago, and our prejudices may be different, but they remain as prejudicial, if not more so. Watching them was really enjoyable because I got to lord it over Kim. My knowledge of having seen these multiple times from basically infancy on, where they were my mother's milk, and also to see how they reverberate now today, which helped in. I'm responding to the movies, and I'm also responding to Kim's questions. So this is I have the answers to the day the earth stood still. Leo Tolstoy said there are only two stories. In one, Don Johnson and Benji the dog leave their home in a nuclear desert to seek adventure and hot young women. In the other, a UFO lands near the White House in Washington, D.C. Perfectly smooth, sleek, it opens seamlessly for a man wearing a silver jumpsuit, face hidden in an orb, to descend the ramp and proffer a gift. He is shot and wounded. His garb is no more than a flimsy jumpsuit of foil. His super gadget shatters on the mown lawn. It is more fragile than glass. However, the saucer and Gort, the giant robot, turn out to be impervious and indestructible. As Gort vaporizes artillery, Klaatu heals faster than an axolotl Sufi. Yeah, I know. Goes walkabout in the capital city. A briefcase tag names him John Carpenter. He astounds the world's greatest scientist, scribbling Talmudic equations in chalk. Uses the hardest of gemstones, love-bearing diamonds, for cash. And he's great with kids, too. A single mom trusts him, but her boyfriend, a treasury tax collector, betrays him. Klaatu is killed, but is resurrected to deliver the good news. Giant robots are in charge of us and the universe. It's the gospel truth. Klaatu ascends skyward, sacrificing himself so that our bad choices and worse behavior might be rewarded with obliteration. What does it mean for us to have free will when everything is at stake? The earth stands still. We are terrified of moving.
Right, so the next movie we had said we were going to do was When Worlds Collide? Okay. 37. Okay. Anything that people need to know before we talk about
anyone
When
familiar
Worlds?
with Worlds Collide? Self-explanatory title, Worlds Collide.
Oh, yeah, so we should say Michael divided these movies up into 3 different categories, right?
Right, it was end of the world, and there were basically 3 tropes. One, something giant stomps us, or something takes us over, or we blowed ourselves up.
There we go, yes. All right. I have so many questions after watching When Worlds Collide. How would you spend your final days? Lighting cigarettes with large denomination bills like Jack, or questioning your choice of mate like Joyce? In denial, anger, bargaining, depression, computing statistics on a differential analyzer? How depressing to pin all your meager hopes on one of the spaceship's 44 slender seats. Hope won't keep Zyra from passing so close to Earth that it causes tsunamis, volcanic eruptions, fires, earthquakes, typhoons. Then, just 19 days after, the planet Belus will collide. This is my favorite part. After mass evacuations inland, in the once great coastal cities, only massive waves fill the streets. Great crashing tidal waves topple high-rises. Waste anything except time, the signs in the work camp read. Our shortest material is time. There's so little we can save. Adopt a tow-headed orphan who then adopts a stray mutt. What's 40 extra pounds on our modern Noah's Ark? Brace yourself. Pounded by pressure, the scientists, or is it the filmmakers, fall back on the fantasy of a homogeneous future, a before the fall, pre-lapsarian Eden, where it seems there's only room if you're white. If you're white, you can draw lots for room aboard ship, Or you can join a gang, pull a gun, and try to force your way on. What would you do? Force your fiancé to give up his prior claim? Sacrifice your seat for your lover? What good is love when planets collide? I ask you, how well do you know yourself? Until Earth's demise is imminent, can you truly know how you would spend your final days?
I just noticed that you go through the 12 steps of the world being destroyed here: bargaining, anger, depression. Very good. And also, although it's a sign to have people busily working away building a spaceship to escape the Earth before it's splattered, our shortest material in time is just absolutely true, isn't it? That's what I mean by answers. I have the answers to when worlds collide. Photographic plates and differential analyzers never lie. We're all doomed. Dave Randall lies about his passenger. She's a cutie pie, not an old auntie. While astronomers in South Africa wait on pins and needles for him to fly those plates to Dr. Hendren in New York, they show, hurtling toward us, a rogue star and planet with names like strippers, Bellis and Zira. They'll obliterate the Earth. The United Nations and Congress scoff. You can prove any malarkey with facts. With barely time to build a space ark, 3 plutocrats ante up the cash. They hoodwink suppliers and employees. With the Earth smashed, money is worth bupkis. Hendren's daughter Joyce falls for pilot Dave, but deceives her fiancé about it. With only 11 days to the end, they toss care packages to flood victims as if all will be well. Annihilation isn't waiting around the corner. Cargo is precisely measured to the ounce, no more than 40 passengers allowed. Then an orphan is rescued, then a puppy, then 2 sweethearts will be torn apart by the secret lottery to choose who goes. Joyce and her pilot, too. The calculations, the lottery, the rules, the timing, all bogus, all a sham. The ship launches early. The mean billionaire wasn't really crippled. Nice Dr. Hendren decides who lives or dies. Even so, the spaceship makes it, passengers dressed like monks, and land safely on Zira. The bay doors open. Dave and Joyce embrace against pink grass and aqua mountains. How many lies do you have to tell yourself this is a happy ending? So we watched like 9 movies altogether. Again, 9 out of the 40 I had set aside.
The 40 essential.
It's the 40. The 40 must watch.
Uh-huh.
Must watch. And we finished doing that, and we felt like we needed bookends, and so Kim came up with what questions, you've watched all these movies, what questions do you have left? And then I said we needed some sort of introduction. When we say the end of the world, precisely what that means to Kim and I anyway. So she has a final poem of not specific to any particular movie.
Okay, and we're going to end with this. It is, of course, called I Have So Many Questions. I still have questions, Michael.
I still have answers.
Of course you do. What have I learned from watching all this science fiction? The science is a lot more like fiction. Look thoughtfully at a beaker, wiggle some dials. If something in the dark wiggles, pull out a gun, not a Bunsen burner. Consider the end of mankind. It's up to older white men to defend pure research. Women are good for packing up equipment in cases and making eggs. Days will be packed with fretful meetings around a conference table. A high voltage weapon provides no defense. In our distraught age, those who panic first are lost. Our best hopes lie with men with the squarest jaws. The best effects are low tech, strings, moody lighting, high gloss matte paintings. Coffee and love are our highest ideals. We must never reveal our fear. Fear is just another word for vigilance. All the differential analyzers, jetpacks, and robots make no difference when civilization crumbles. The hero understands better than the rest of us fools, how to stand up to the invaders, what things look like under a microscope. He would like eggs frying in a pan, domesticity in the meantime, even if there's no time to eat before the world ends. Sometimes there's prayers, but only love ties up the loose ends. That's what I've learned.
Thank you, Kim and Michael. That was so much fun. It's like a doomsday comedy act. And thank you, Bonnie, and thank you, Michelle, for a wonderful evening of poetry. I know you won't want to miss the next Café Muse program on Monday, November 3rd at 7:15, which will be online. Our featured readers will be Megan Pinto and Emily Highland. So make sure you're registered on the Café Muse website so you'll get the information and the Zoom link. So have a wonderful evening, everyone. I hope you don't have bad dreams about aliens. And I'm so glad that you joined us this evening. Good night.